Morning. I dropped a bomb on Jordan Peterson's transgender argument yesterday. Um, I'm not going to go into it on this in these videos yet, because we're not at that stage in philosophy. But if anybody would like to read it, it's on Dr. Sugrew's lectures. It's on his lecture on Plato from book 6 to 10, and it's in the comment section on that. But as far as I'm concerned, his transgender argument is over. The whole thing is fucking nailed. It's over. He asserts himself as an intellectual, but I contend he's ignorant of the good, and ignorance is the greatest oppressor of virtue. So read it or don't read it. It's there for anyone to read anyway. Dr. Sugrew's lecture on Plato, book 6 to 10. It's in the comment section. But as I say, as far as I'm concerned, that argument is over now. And it also applies to that fucking Egypt that's standing outside the school in Mayo. Is it Mayo? It applies to that fucking Egypt as well, trying to make a name for himself. And fucking, there's a consequence for every fucking action, and he has to realise this and accept the consequences with equanimity. But that's another ignorant fool, and it highlights the ignorance in Christianity as well. It really, same argument applies. As I say, you know where it is. It's in Plato's book. Anyway, it's in, and Dr. Sugrew's lectures. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. When I was in Turkey, when I found myself homeless in Istanbul, I had no passport, no license, no fuck all. And all I had was a phone. And I always say everything is how you use it, everything is how you use it. And I often get these clowns telling me, oh, the fucking phone, this phone, addicted to the phone. And well, I had one man here the other night tell me he's addicted to the phone. I won't say everyone says they're addicted to the phone, but everything is about how you use it. So I was left with the phone, and with this phone, not this particular one, because I've had several phones since, but with the same phone, I educated myself. I taught myself philosophy. Well. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yes, I educated myself. Yes, I taught myself philosophy. And Dr. Sugrew's lectures and what's your man's name? Greg. Dr. Sugrew's lectures are fantastic anyway. And like Stories of Old is another great channel for wonderful philosophy that's very easy to comprehend and understand. Now, Dr. Sugrew's lectures are really easy to understand, but I suggest you go over them 2 or 3 times, because they're just gems. They're just gems, and you wouldn't just try one. You'll see exactly what I mean. But I educated myself using the phone. I left another comment yesterday in Like Stories of Old on the film about the comet going to hit the Earth, and I left a comment about climate change. But I won't go into that on this on this channel either, for the moment, not till a later date. But I also made a very valid and significant point on climate change. But as I say, that's in the Like Stories of Old, in the comments on the comet going to hit the Earth. But again, they're a bit profound. Not saying we just haven't reached that level of philosophy yet, but we'll get there. But I was talking about the phone, and then with the same phone, I started a business in Istanbul. Even though I had nowhere to live, no food, no fuck all, I still started a business called GrandBazaarOnline.com, in which I used to go in and take pictures in Grand Bazaar and post them on a Facebook page I had that was connected to one of my many Facebook pages. And I used to post pictures of shoes, handbags, clothes. Baby clothes was a big thing, because you could buy baby clothes in Istanbul for €1, maybe for a baby grow, €1 for a baby grow, and all sorts of children's clothes for very, 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 very good money, like, you know, very for small money. And I was posting them and for sale, and on this page. And we can ask what my intent was. And my intent was that, number one, I wanted to help the Turkish people to sell their indigenous goods. In other words, I was telling them to I was suggesting, well, I told them, stop selling that fucking Chinese shite. Stop telling that Chinese shite because you're slitting your own fucking throat. The fake carpets that are made in China and selling them then to people as handmade Turkish carpet. I said you're slitting your own throat because the minute you find out that it's not a fucking Turkish handmade carpet and you make a fucking cunt out and make a fool of them, I said you're losing fucking 5-6 customers minimum every time. Not only that, you're giving everybody a bad name. You're slitting your own fucking throat. So I suggested that they stop selling the Chinese shit and sell the indigenous products, like the hand-woven carpet. And you see, we have to get into it now. I'll get into it in a second, but when we get into the value of things, the intrinsic value of things, and the beauty of things, but that's another philosophy. The beauty of the philosophy of aesthetics. That's another philosophy in itself, which I might get into in more depth because that's I've that targeted as well. That area targeted as well. I want to get right into that, into aesthetics, but that's not what I'm talking about this morning. And I was saying to them, like, that stop selling this shit. But what I did want to sell was the fake, fake designer shoes, fake designer handbags, and some of them made to a superior quality than the actual original brand. Really high quality stuff, like really high quality stuff. But my intent was not only to a more better distribution of the world's wealth, but it was also to dilute the current market, what is currently considered, like, what people consider put value on. So I wanted people to reevaluate their values, and this is very much what I'm on. And now for Peterson is going to have to reevaluate his as well if he reads my comment, but this is the revaluation of values is a huge subject, but I'll just stick to this for the moment. And I wanted people to reevaluate their values. In other words, I wanted to dilute their market, and I wanted to build my own and establish my own, but on a questioning what value you're putting on things. Why should you buy this over this? Why should you buy this over that? And this was my intent, to flood the market with fake stuff and make people question, like, if I have a Gucci handbag. If I have a Gucci handbag, say, and I have my fake handbag and it's a better quality than your Gucci handbag, which is the original thing, what makes your Gucci handbag better than my Gucci handbag, and why are you buying a Gucci handbag in the first place? Do you know what I'm saying? And if you're buying a Gucci handbag, and if the correct answer to this is a demonstration of wealth, and you want to you want people to perceive you in a certain light, doesn't the fake handbag do the very same job? And the reality is that it does. But then, yeah. The reality is that it does, but of course, then if people will ask you a question, is that real? Is that real? And then you say, of course, it's fucking real. But then they say, is it a real Gucci? Is it a real Gucci? And people do like to do this, and I have to wonder, why does it fucking matter? Why does it matter, like? And this has to be the question: why does it matter? But then. So my idea was to dilute theirs, but then there was a man here the other night, and we were talking about gemstones. Now, Thomas More recommended that gemstones should be given to the children. Thomas More was all about utopias. He wanted to create a utopia and wanted to work towards a utopia. And a part of creating this utopia was to give the children gemstones to play with. And basically, in giving the children gemstones to play with, you completely devalue the gemstone. The child then grows up not having this conditioned value on gemstones, but the child says they're only things that you play with. They're of no intrinsic value. They're of no intrinsic value whatsoever. They're just coloured rocks that you find in the earth, rocks that you play with, and you can cut them up any way you fucking like and market them whatever way you fucking like. I used to play with them as a child. They're only rocks. And this was Thomas More's idea. And basically then that what he's saying is that no intrinsic value. Now gold has no intrinsic value to me, and I spent all day yesterday thinking about intrinsic value, and really what we could say about now intrinsic value is the value of something in and of itself. Like this cup, you know, regardless of its monetary value, has a value to me because I get to drink my coffee out of it every morning. This cup has intrinsic value. Now, yesterday I made the argument that math, for example, even though the Plato reckoned that maths is the highest form of abstraction. Plato contends that maths is the highest form of abstraction, and the current academic hierarchy would agree with Plato that maths is the highest form of abstraction. Now, I have been contending that maths is not the highest form of abstraction, art is. Because if look at the way I use art, it's subliminal. It doesn't need any big understanding or any great knowledge for the subliminal message from art. And this is why I used to say art is the highest form of abstraction. But I too now, like Plato, and I'm transitioning between mythos and logos. But I still say that math is not the highest form of abstraction, logic is. Logic is the highest form of abstraction. Reason are the logos. Yeah, I'm transitioning between mythos and logos. So logic is the highest form of abstraction and mythos, because we can all reason without having to know math. But I say math does not have an intrinsic value because it's inextricably linked to reason, to logic, and the conclusions and any conclusions that you derive through math can only have a value that is based on the variables that you begin with. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's inextricably linked to reason and logic, and therefore it has an extrinsic value. It doesn't have an intrinsic value. It doesn't have any value as a thing in and of itself. It's just figures and symbols. Yeah. So, art and logic and maths then, well, you can do what you like with the maths. Yeah. Right, I think that's enough for this morning. I was going to tell you about a whole fucking thing. I was going to tell you about the whole fake contraband goods. I was going to tell you about the contraband goods, but we might talk about that tomorrow because I want to talk about the fake empire that we're living in. Well, I still have time. I was going to talk about the fake empire because I was going to say and then we were talking about the gemstones the other night, and I was saying I wanted to mine Zoltanite, and I wanted to use Zoltanite to leverage my own digital currency against it. In other words, something similar like they did with the dollar and the gold. But now that that's no longer the case. You know, that's no longer the case. The gold has even less of an intrinsic value as far as I'm concerned. But then I started to look at the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, and I started to look at the intrinsic value. I'm going back to intrinsic value. I started looking at intrinsic value of Bitcoin and everything else. And really, as Marcus Aurelius used to say, life is perception. Life is perception. Now, Bitcoin, for example, if you look up the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, a lot of people will say, Warren Buffett and all say Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. And then, of course, there are people who want to protect the fiat currency. But the same argument applies to fiat currency. But really then you'll get people who say that Bitcoin does have an intrinsic value because you can spend it and how you use it and everything else. But really, like, whether something has intrinsic value or not is a matter of perception. There's a lot of people have no intrinsic value to me. Now, of course, you got all the goody-goodies saying that people have intrinsic value, but there's a lot of people have no intrinsic value to me. You know, they're of no use to me, like. I see no value in them, like. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I never even got to fucking talk about the fake empire. The one directive my mother gave me was, if you cannot see the forest for the trees, burn it all down and bring the ashes to me. But fortunately enough, I have no problem separating the wheat from the chaff, so hopefully I won't have to burn anything. But I want to talk about the fake empire, and I'm out of time. I'll talk about the fake empire tomorrow because this is massive. Bye.